earthquake that happened and had our brother, Christian Atsu, still left under rubble after almost 26 hours. But the story, if you just join us, is that he's being pulled out of the rubble and he's responding to treatment that what we're being told from Turkey. Then Afento is here. Tell me about the conflicting report we had earlier. I mean, yesterday was just brutal.
Yeah.
Someone will say this, the next moment is the we couldn't wrap our head around what was happening. Why did we have that one?
You know, I think one of the most important things that you have to understand is timing. Now, the incident happened around 4 a.m. So many people were waking up to the news. And once that happens, everybody is trying frenetically to try and get something and get some information and put some information out. So what was, without a doubt, what became very clear from the very beginning was that Christian Atsu was trapped and that he was trapped alongside the sporting director of the club, Tanya Savut. And there were others. In fact, there were 9 other teammates who had been trapped. And those others, 7 of them had been pulled out except Atsu and Tanya. Now, Atsu lived on the 9th floor of the apartment building. And so when all of that rubble comes down, you can imagine how difficult it must be trying to locate 1 or 2 human beings from inside such a huge rubble. So that's what it was, around 4 in the morning. And, you know, there were people who had been in touch with Christian Atsu prior to the incident. In fact, because he had scored on Sunday, a last-minute winner, free kick, wonderful goal. And he had stayed up late, buzzing, you know, chatting with people and still celebrating and what have you. And said goodbyes around 2:30 in the morning and went to sleep, only for people to wake up and suddenly hear the news that he had been trapped. So as the day went on and the news started to filter in, everybody was desperate to get some good news. And so people started to talk to some teammates, started to talk to some management members, because clearly Atsu himself was not reachable. And then a little later in the day, I think a little past 2 p.m. thereabouts, the report started to trickle in that he had been found. Now, the first report came from a newspaper in Portugal called Abola. Now, Abola is one of the biggest newspapers in Portugal. So they reported that Christian Atsu had been found and taken to hospital.
Okay.
Now, then the English press were the first to pick up on it. So then the Daily Mirror picked up on it. A certain Colin Miller, who reports for the Mirror, he was the first to really give the story a big attraction, big traction. So then the Mirror picked up on it, and then the Guardian picked up on it, the Daily Mail picked up on it, the Athletic, Bleacher Report. All the international platforms picked up on it. Some Ghanaian journalists picked up on it as well. And it was everywhere. But the most fundamental thing, or the most interesting thing about the report, was that every single one of those reports from all these big newspapers across the UK and elsewhere was quoting just one source. And the one source was Abola. So that was what kind of gave, it was the first red flag, kind of. It's like, if something is happening, and at that whole point, Turkish journalists, including Yajis himself, was reporting that Atsu had not yet been pulled out. So, you know, then so when it happens like that, you begin to question yourself and question the sources. Like the people who are in Turkey and have access to the club, the president, the teammate, they're saying that the player has not been pulled out. And the newspaper in Portugal, even though they may have connections to the club and also even to the player himself, because remember, Atsu played in Portugal for FC Porto. His wife or ex-wife is Portuguese. They have access on that level. You still had major doubts. And so a little later, around midnight, it became clear that Atsu was still trapped because the club president came out to speak to the media where he said that Christian Atsu, alongside the club sporting director, Tanya Savit, were still trapped. And he called for rescuing efforts to be intensified. And the entire city of Attaya is being flattened. So it's that bad. And so even where the
entire city.
Yes, and even where the rescue efforts were supposed to come from are not there. So in fact, they had to now look for some construction equipment from mining sites from outside of the city. So imagine how slow it is to move some of these heavy-duty cranes and equipment to come and start to pull people from the rubble. And when the people come, or when these equipment come, they are limited. And most of the city is flattened. So where do they go first? So there were all of those issues, and they started to dig up, and there was a video that emerged of the apartment building where Atsu and Tanya Savut lived, so that was when they started to dig up. Around 3:30 a.m., I didn't get any sleep. So around 3:30 a.m., obviously, there was another update from the club's vice president that they were still searching for them. Then we eventually got the news we were looking for around 6:30. You see that tweet there from... Exactly, translated below. He said Christian Atsu has been pulled from the wreckage alive. At that point, he hadn't indicated whether he was fine or he wasn't. So I replied to him and I asked him, is he okay? And then he responded by saying yes. So that was our first indication that it had happened. This was the first report coming from Turkish media that Atsu had been pulled out alive. All the other reports prior to that had not emanated from Turkey.
We're outside Turkey.
We're outside of Turkey. The primary source being a newspaper in Portugal called Abola. Okay. So once this was tweeted, obviously now we started to reach out. So I reached out to Yajes. We spoke to him on Joy FM to confirm the news he did, and then he added more details after that, and he said the extent of Atsu's injuries were not known, and it was at that point that he also indicated that Tanya Savut, the man who was trapped alongside Atsu in that building, was still there, and that rescuers were still looking for him. He doesn't say how long Atsu is out for. He did warn that perhaps we've had incidents where people have survived accidents and gone to the hospital and it hasn't worked out. So it's still important to keep Atsu in prayer, exactly, because it's not exactly in the clear. The other thing that became obvious was that the entire team of Hatayspor have been flown to Adana, another city in Turkey, because there's absolutely no place for them. Because, like I indicated, most parts of the city has been flat and the players have no place to live. So, but, that is just looking at it. And we have paid attention to the story more closely because of Christian Atsu. But when you look at the much bigger story, the humanitarian crisis that this has brought, over 4,000 lives have been lost as a result of that. You can understand why... the efforts will be scattered and all over the place. And even as we speak, people are still calling for rescuers to come in and help, because it certainly isn't a pleasant sight at all. And those visuals, people working day and night to try and see if they can find people trapped under the rubble.
Well, I'll come back to you so that we look at the impact on the larger footballing, industry in Turkey and in Europe. But let's share with you some tweets that some people have been sharing since the story broke yesterday. Obviously, Yage Sabunçoglu's own is about confirming that he's alive. But the president, since yesterday, has been tweeting about this. He says that on behalf of the government and people of Ghana, I extend heartfelt condolences to the government and people of Turkey and Syria on the devastation and the tragic loss of lives occasioned by Monday's earthquake. Then he continues to say, may their souls rest in perfect peace. Our hearts and prayers go out to the survivors, and we pray that our fellow Ghanaian, Christian Atsu, is found safe and sound. So those are the tweets by the president. And now this morning, that's about an hour and some few minutes ago, Asamoah tweeted this picture with the prayer sign upon the announcement that he's been found. That's when he brought out this picture and that sign thanking God that he's been found. This is by the vice president about some 20 hours ago. He says, my thoughts and prayers are with our brother Christian Atsu, all Ghanaians in Turkey and Syria, and the people in these countries following the earthquake. May God protect them all. So that's Dr. Mahmoud Baumia there. So this tweet, was something that we got to then confirm that, in fact, what we were hearing is true, and that Christian had been found. The Ghana Football Association tweeted that, update, we've received some positive news that Christian Atsu has been successfully rescued from the rubble of the collapsed building and is receiving treatment. Let's continue to pray for Christian with the prayer sign there. That's a tweet by the Ghana Football Association. And this tweet was by the former president, John Dramani Mahama. It was tweeted 19 hours ago, so by now we're counting into the 20 hours. Now he says, let's continue to pray for our brother Christian Atsu and his club director the city of Hayat, is in the region affected by the earthquake. Let's continue to pray that God spares their lives. So these are some of the tweets. Now, Kenyatta also tweeted when the story was broken that, in fact, he's been found alive. He says, "Ow, joy comes in the morning, ampa." We thank God for the life of Christian Atsu, 20. We pray for those who are still trapped and can't be found. Coming with a photograph of a smiley Christian Atsu there now. So these are some of the tweets that some people have been sharing in the wake of this. Now,
there is more.
Okay,
from,
there's more.
Especially Christian Atsu's former clubs.
Okay, great.
So Chelsea
and Newcastle.
And Newcastle United, exactly. So Newcastle were the first to tweet. They tweeted it yesterday, and they said praying for some positive news. And they have a picture of Christian Atsu up with the prayer hands and then the heart emojis. And then Chelsea also tweeted yesterday, and Chelsea's tweet basically just says, so that one, they also put up a picture of Christian Atsu in a Chelsea jersey, and they say the thoughts of everyone at Chelsea Football Club are with those affected by the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. We are praying for you, Christian Atsu. So overwhelming, especially from the football community.
Have also just
he played there on loan
on Facebook with his picture in their colours, and they say, "We are relieved to hear Christian Atsu has been successfully rescued and is recovering in hospital. Our thought continue to be with everyone affected by the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria." So that's by Everton Football Club there.
He spent the season there on loan as well. So there's a universal acclaim for the news, and it's obviously one that's been coming for a very long time. We've been hoping and praying for this, and this is exactly what we want. So the next big thing that has to happen is to be sure that he gets out of hospital safe and sound. As things stand, the Turkish sports minister has announced that all sporting activities in the country will be suspended indefinitely until further notice. He made that announcement yesterday via tweet, and so it's what it is, because there are some things that are much more important than football.
Exactly.
And this is one of them, because the numbers are huge.
People's lives matter.
Exactly. So sports will be suspended. And for the team Hatayespor, who have been most affected by this, they have taken the team to Adana, and they've asked every player to go home and be with their families, at least for now. So in terms of implications for what this is for them, that's what it is. But I think that most importantly for Christian Atsu, I think the next big step for him is once he recovers and he gets out of hospital, I think the next important thing for him would be to try and reunite him with his family. He's got an ex-wife and he's got a kid. He's got family members here who had very sleepless nights yesterday waiting for some positive news. And he eventually arrived in the morning. Like Kofiata said, the joy does really come in the morning. And it was really great. Actually, one of the reasons people have been very united in pushing and praying for Christian Atsu is that deep down, outside of the football pitch, he's an amazing human being. He does a lot of humanitarian works. His most profound humanitarian work has to do with, feeding prisoners and freeing prisoners all the time, and justice for people who were wrongly convicted and what have you, because he absolutely believes that every human being has or deserves a second chance. And his best friend is Wakasu. They're always on each other's necks on social media. So it really is good to see. And we are very happy at this moment.
Heart out to all the people affected by this earthquake.